There is a battle happening inside you right now, and most people never realize it until it quietly takes over their life. One part of you is chasing happiness, while the other part is being pulled towards something deeper, something eternal. And the dangerous truth is this: what you call happiness might actually be the thing keeping you spiritually stuck. This is the crossroad. There is a quiet tension many people carry but rarely understand. It doesn't always announce itself loudly. It doesn't always look like a crisis. Sometimes it hides beneath your daily routine, behind your smiles, your distractions, your normal life. But it is there. A subtle unrest, a feeling that something isn't fully aligned, a sense that even when things are fine, something deeper is unsettled. It is a pull in two directions. On one side, there is the deep call toward God, a call toward truth, discipline, and spiritual awakening. It is not always emotional, and it is rarely convenient. It comes as a quiet conviction, a nudge in your spirit, a persistent awareness that you were made for something deeper than surface-level living. This call invites you into stillness, into reflection, into surrender. It asks you to slow down, to examine your life, to let go of what is comfortable but empty. It challenges your habits, your desires, and sometimes even your identity. But on the other side, there is another voice, louder, more immediate, and far more appealing. The desire to feel happy, to enjoy life without restriction, to avoid anything that feels heavy, painful, or uncomfortable, to protect your peace at all costs, even if that peace is only temporary. This voice tells you that life should feel good all the time, that you deserve ease, that anything that disrupts your comfort must be wrong. And so, without realizing it, you begin to shape your decisions around feelings instead of truth. You start choosing what is easy over what is necessary, what is pleasurable over what is purposeful, what distracts you over what develops you. And slowly, this creates an internal conflict. Because while one part of you is chasing happiness, another part of you is still hearing the call. A call you cannot fully ignore. A call that returns in your quiet moments. A call that shows up when distractions fade and you are left alone with your thoughts. It is in those moments you feel it the strongest. That tension between who you are becoming and who you are avoiding to become. This is the crossroad. Not a physical place, but a spiritual condition. A moment where your soul stands between two paths, one that prioritizes comfort, ease, and emotional satisfaction, and another that leads to growth, transformation, and alignment with God. And the most dangerous part is this. Many people are standing at this crossroad, but they don't recognize it. They think the tension is confusion. They think the discomfort means something is wrong. They think the loss of interest in certain things is a problem to fix, not realizing it may be the very sign that something within them is awakening. And once you begin to feel that tension, that quiet pull between something deeper and something easier, the next influence that meets you is subtle, but powerful. It is the voice that tells you, just be happy. At first, it sounds harmless, even wise, but slowly, without realizing it, this idea begins to reshape how you see life. The world has redefined happiness into something urgent and non-negotiable, not something to grow into, but something to maintain at all costs. You are taught that your feelings should always be protected. That discomfort is a warning sign, that anything that disturbs your emotional state must be avoided, fixed, or removed immediately. So instead of asking, "Is this making me better?" you begin to ask, "Is this making me feel good?" And that shift changes everything. Because now, your decisions are no longer guided by truth. They are guided by emotion. You start to walk away from things that challenge you. You disconnect from anything that feels heavy. You avoid environments, conversations, and even spiritual disciplines that require effort or discomfort. Not because they are wrong, but because they don't feel good. And this is where the deception begins, because this version of happiness is fragile. It depends on outcomes, on people behaving the way you expect, on situations unfolding in your favor. It is unstable by nature. One bad moment can disrupt it. One disappointment can shake it. One uncomfortable truth can threaten it. And because it is so fragile, you begin to protect it. You become more selective, not in wisdom, but in comfort. More guarded, not in discernment, but in avoidance. More controlled, not in discipline, but in fear of losing how you feel. And without realizing it, you don't just chase happiness anymore. You become controlled by it. Because now, anything that doesn't feed your emotions feels like a threat, even if it is necessary for your growth, even if it is sent to refine you, even if it is part of what God is trying to use to shape you. So you resist it, you escape it, you replace it with something easier, lighter, more immediately satisfying, and slowly something dangerous happens. Your life is no longer built on truth, it is built on how you feel. And feelings, no matter how strong, are not stable foundations. They change, they shift, they respond to circumstances. Which means if your life is built on them, you will constantly be adjusting, reacting, and searching, never fully anchored. This is why the tension you felt earlier does not go away. Because deep down, your spirit recognizes something your emotions cannot. That a life built only on feeling good can never lead to becoming whole. And this is exactly where the deeper path begins to separate itself. Because while a life built on feelings keeps you reacting, spiritual depth calls you into transformation. It does not ask, how do you feel? It asks, who are you becoming? Spiritual depth does not operate on emotions. It operates on transformation. And transformation is not comfortable. It is not instant. It is not always rewarding in the moment. And it rarely aligns with your natural desire for ease. When God begins to work in your life, He does not start by making you comfortable. He starts by making you aware. Aware of your patterns, the cycles you keep repeating without questioning, aware of your attachments, the things you depend on for identity, validation, or emotional security. Aware of the parts of you that are not aligned with Him, your hidden motives, your quiet compromises, your unaddressed weaknesses. And this kind of awareness is not light. It is confronting. Because suddenly, you can see what you once ignored. You can feel what you once suppressed. You can recognize what you once justified. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is why awareness is uncomfortable, because it removes the illusion of peace. Before, you could enjoy certain habits without thinking. You could stay in certain environments without conviction. You could entertain things that now disturb your spirit. But now, something has changed. Now there is a tension within your actions, a resistance within your spirit, a quiet conviction that interrupts what once felt normal. You can no longer enjoy things the same way. You can no longer ignore what you used to ignore. And this is not punishment. This is transformation beginning. But here is where the crossroad becomes even more intense, because at this stage, you now have two options. You can move forward into growth or retreat back into comfort. And many people turn back at this point, not because they are weak, not because they don't believe in God, but because growth feels heavier than happiness. Growth requires you to sit with truth instead of escaping it, to confront yourself instead of distracting yourself, to let go of what feels familiar, even when it still feels good. And that weight can feel overwhelming, especially when the alternative is so easily available. To go back to what numbs you, to return to what entertains you, to rebuild a version of peace that doesn't require change. So people turn back. They silence the conviction. They ignore the awareness. They choose comfort over transformation. And for a moment, it feels like relief. But deep within, something remains unsettled. Because once God has made you aware, your spirit cannot fully rest in what is misaligned. This is the nature of spiritual depth. It will not allow you to stay the same. It will disturb you before it develops you. It will expose you before it elevates you. It will refine you before it reveals who you are meant to become. And that is why it feels so different from chasing happiness. Because happiness tries to make you feel better, but God is trying to make you become better. And this is where the weight of transformation begins to take a different shape. Because after awareness comes separation. After you begin to see clearly, you can no longer stay connected to everything the same way. This is where spiritual growth starts to feel like loss. One of the most confusing parts of spiritual growth is that it doesn't always feel like progress. It often feels like something is being taken away. You begin to outgrow people, not out of pride, but out of alignment. Conversations that once felt natural now feel forced. Connections that once felt strong now feel distant. Not because you no longer care, but because something within you has shifted, and that shift creates distance. You lose interest in things that once excited you. What used to entertain you now feels empty. What once gave you satisfaction now feels temporary. What once held your attention now struggles to keep it. And this can feel unsettling, because you start to question yourself. Why don't I enjoy this anymore? What is happening to me? You find yourself choosing silence over noise. You begin to withdraw from constant activity, from unnecessary conversations, from environments that feel loud but lack depth. Not because you want to isolate yourself, but because your spirit is craving something different, something quieter, something real, something that feeds you, not just distracts you. And in the middle of all this, it can feel like something is wrong, like you are losing your life, like you are becoming disconnected, like you are drifting away from everything familiar. But nothing is wrong. This is where many misunderstand what God is doing, because it feels like loss, but it is actually alignment. You are not losing your life. You are losing what no longer aligns with your spirit. You are not becoming empty. You are being emptied of what no longer serves your growth. God is not taking from you. He is refining you. He is removing distractions that once controlled you. He is separating you from environments that limited you. He is loosening your attachment to things that once defined you, not to leave you with nothing, but to prepare you for something deeper. And refinement is not comfortable. It requires letting go before you fully understand what is ahead. It asks you to trust the process before you see the outcome, which is why this stage feels so heavy. Because you are standing between what you used to be and what you are becoming. And in that space, everything can feel uncertain. This is why many people turn back here. They mistake refinement for loss. They interpret distance as emptiness. They assume something is wrong and try to return to what is familiar. But what is familiar is no longer aligned. And going back may feel easier, but it will also feel incomplete. Because true growth will always cost you something. Not to punish you, but to free you. To free you from what was keeping you small. To free you from what was shaping your life without your awareness. To free you from a version of yourself that could not carry where you were going. So when growth feels like loss, understand this. You are not being reduced. You are being refined. You are not being emptied without purpose. You are being prepared with intention. And what you are releasing now is making space for who you are becoming. And as you begin to release what no longer aligns, as growth starts to feel like loss, you are brought face to face with a deeper, more personal decision. Because at this stage, it is no longer just about what you are leaving behind. It is about what you are choosing moving forward. This is where the crossroad becomes clear, not as a feeling, but as a decision. At the center of the crossroad is a simple but powerful conflict. Do you want to feel good, or do you want to be transformed? At first, the answer seems obvious, but in reality, this is one of the most difficult spiritual choices a person will ever face. Because feeling good is immediate. It gives you relief without requiring change. It allows you to stay the same while avoiding discomfort. It offers you a version of peace that does not challenge your habits, your mindset, or your direction. And in moments of weakness, confusion, or emotional fatigue, that kind of relief is hard to resist. But transformation is different. Transformation is slow. It does not rush to comfort you. It does not remove pressure instantly. It does not always give you clarity when you want it. Instead, it asks something deeper from you. It requires you to sit in discomfort instead of escaping it, to be patient in silence when everything in you wants immediate answers, to trust God even when nothing around you feels certain or stable. And this is where the tension intensifies. Because after experiencing the weight of growth, After feeling the loss, the separation, the uncertainty, you will naturally desire relief. You will want something to make it easier, something to make it lighter, something to help you feel like yourself again. And this is exactly where chasing happiness presents itself. Not as something wrong, but as something easier. It offers you an escape, an easier path that requires less sacrifice, a quicker relief that removes the pressure, a temporary peace that feels like resolution, but is only interruption. And this is the danger. Because temporary peace feels real in the moment, it convinces you that you've found balance, that you've made the right choice, that stepping away from the weight was necessary. But what it actually does is delay the work that needed to be done. The problem is, temporary peace often delays permanent growth. It pauses your transformation. It softens your conviction. It slowly pulls you back into patterns you were already being called out of. So instead of moving forward, you remain in between, not fully where you used to be, but not fully becoming who you are meant to be. And that space can feel even more frustrating, because now you are aware, but not advancing. You see the truth, but are not fully living in it. This is why this conflict is so important, because it determines your direction. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you strengthen your attachment to what is easy. But every time you choose transformation over temporary relief, you strengthen your alignment with who God is shaping you to become. This is not about rejecting happiness. It is about understanding its place. Happiness is not meant to lead your life. Truth is, feelings are not meant to guide your decisions. Growth is. Because in the end, a life built on feeling good may feel peaceful for a moment, but a life committed to transformation will become powerful, stable, and deeply rooted over time. And so the question remains, not once, but daily. Will you choose what feels good, or will you choose what changes you? And after standing in that conflict, after repeatedly choosing between what feels good and what transforms you, a pattern begins to form. Because the choices you make in those quiet, unseen moments eventually shape the direction of your life. This is where many people don't fall back, but slowly become stuck. Not completely lost, not completely unchanged, but unable to move forward with clarity and consistency. Many people remain spiritually stagnant, not because they don't believe in God, but because they are more committed to feeling good than becoming whole. They want growth, but not the discomfort that comes with it. They desire change, but resist the process that produces it. They pray for transformation, but avoid the very situations that require them to transform. So they begin to structure their lives around comfort. They avoid anything that challenges them, anything that exposes their weaknesses, anything that confronts their habits, anything that requires them to look deeper than the surface, because challenge feels like pressure, and pressure feels like something to escape. They resist anything that stretches them. They stay within familiar environments. They keep repeating patterns they already understand. They choose what feels manageable over what demands growth, not because they are incapable, but because stretching feels uncertain, and uncertainty threatens their sense of control. They walk away from anything that feels heavy. Heavy conversations, heavy truths, heavy responsibilities, even heavy moments with God that require stillness and reflection. They interpret heavy as wrong. So instead of leaning in, they withdraw. Instead of processing, they distract. Instead of growing, they pause. And over time, this creates a cycle of starting and stopping, of feeling inspired, then retreating, of becoming aware, then avoiding what that awareness requires. So they remain in the same place, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, not because they lack desire, but because they avoid depth, not realizing that sometimes what feels heavy is exactly what is meant to heal them. Because healing is not always gentle. It often requires confrontation. It demands honesty. It brings things to the surface that were hidden for a reason. And that process can feel uncomfortable, even overwhelming. But that weight has purpose. What feels heavy may be the truth you've been avoiding, the habit you need to release, the discipline you've been resisting, the surrender you've been delaying, and until you face it, you remain tied to what is keeping you in place. This is why many people stay stuck at the crossroad, not because they cannot move forward, but because moving forward requires them to let go of what feels safe. It requires them to choose transformation consistently, not just when it feels convenient. Because growth is not a one-time decision, it is a daily commitment, a repeated choice to lean into what challenges you instead of running back to what comforts you. And the longer you avoid what is meant to grow you, the more familiar stagnation becomes, until eventually, being stuck starts to feel normal. But spiritually, normal is not always healthy. Sometimes it is just unchallenged. And this is the truth many people don't realize. You don't stay stuck because you lack direction. You stay stuck because you keep choosing what is easier over what is necessary. So the question is no longer just, do you want to feel good or be transformed? Now it becomes, are you willing to stay committed to transformation even when it feels heavy? And once you begin to recognize why you've been stuck, once you see the patterns, the avoidance, the pull toward what is easy, a deeper question begins to rise. If chasing happiness is what kept me stagnant, then what is real happiness? Because at this point, it becomes clear. What you've been calling happiness may not have been happiness at all. It may have been comfort, relief, distraction. And now, standing on the other side of awareness, you are invited to redefine it. True happiness is not found in constant pleasure. It is not built on everything going your way. It is not sustained by perfect conditions or controlled outcomes, because anything that depends on circumstances will always be unstable. And deep within, you already know this. You've experienced moments that felt good, but didn't last. Moments that gave you temporary relief, but left you unchanged. True happiness is found in alignment with truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. Alignment with purpose, even when that purpose requires sacrifice. Alignment with God, even when the path is unclear. Because alignment does something pleasure cannot. It grounds you. When you are aligned, you are no longer constantly reacting to life. You are rooted within it. You are not easily shaken by changes because your stability does not come from what is happening around you. It comes from what is anchored within you. This kind of happiness is different. It is not loud. It is not overly emotional. It does not need constant validation. It is quiet, but strong. It is steady, but deep. It does not rush in moments of excitement, and it does not disappear in moments of difficulty, because it is not dependent on external conditions. This is why it survives what pleasure cannot. It remains when life becomes uncertain. It stays when things don't go as planned. It holds you together when emotions fluctuate, because it is not built on what you feel. It is built on what you have become. And this is where everything begins to shift. Because now, instead of chasing happiness, you begin to pursue alignment. Instead of asking, how can I feel better? You begin to ask, how can I live truer? Instead of avoiding discomfort, you begin to understand its role in shaping you. And this directly answers the struggle from before. The reason many people stay stuck is because they are chasing a version of happiness that was never meant to sustain them. But when you redefine happiness as alignment, everything changes. Now, growth is no longer the enemy. It becomes the path. Now, discomfort is no longer something to escape. It becomes something to understand. Now, transformation is no longer heavy without meaning. It becomes purposeful. Because true happiness is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of alignment within the struggle. And when you begin to live from that place, you are no longer controlled by what happens around you. You are guided by what is established within you. So the crossroad is no longer confusing. It becomes clear. One path offers temporary feelings. The other builds lasting foundation. One asks you to chase. The other invites you to become. And in the end, true happiness is not something you find. It is something you grow into when your life aligns with God, truth, and purpose. And once you begin to understand what true happiness really is, not pleasure, not escape, but alignment, then the crossroad becomes something deeper than a moment. It becomes a lifestyle, because alignment is not achieved once, it is maintained daily. The crossroad is not a one-time moment. It is not a single dramatic decision that settles everything forever. It is a quiet, ongoing choice that shows up in your everyday life, in your thoughts, in your habits, in your reactions, in the small decisions no one else sees. It is a daily decision, not made in big, visible actions alone, but in the subtle directions you choose throughout your day. Because every day you are pulled in both directions again. The desire to feel good and the call to grow deeper. Every day you choose distraction or discipline. Do you fill your time with noise to avoid yourself? Or do you create space to reflect, to pray, to grow? Because distraction is easy. It asks nothing from you. But discipline requires intention. It demands that you face yourself honestly. Comfort or calling. Do you stay where things feel familiar and safe? Or do you move toward what God is asking of you, even when it stretches you? Because comfort will keep you relaxed, but calling will change you. Emotion or truth. Do you follow how you feel in the moment, or do you stand on what you know is right, even when your emotions disagree? Because feelings shift, but truth remains. Every day, you decide whether to protect your feelings or refine your spirit. And this decision is not always obvious. Sometimes protecting your feelings looks like peace, but it is actually avoidance. Sometimes refining your spirit feels like pressure, but it is actually growth. This is why consistency matters, because one decision will not transform you, but repeated decisions will. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you strengthen your focus. Every time you choose calling over comfort, you deepen your purpose. Every time you choose truth over emotion, you stabilize your life. And slowly, without even realizing it, those small daily choices begin to shape who you are becoming. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily. This is how alignment is built, not in one powerful moment, but in many quiet, faithful decisions. And this is the final understanding of the crossroad. It is not about choosing once between happiness and spiritual depth. It is about choosing daily between what is easy and what is eternal. Because in the end, your life will not be defined by what you desired occasionally, but by what you chose consistently. So the question is no longer just, what do I want? Now it becomes, what am I choosing every single day? And after all the daily decisions, after the constant choosing between distraction and discipline, comfort and calling, emotion and truth, a quiet reality begins to settle in. Because what you repeatedly choose every day does not just shape your schedule, it shapes your soul. The greatest danger is not pain. Pain is often obvious. It confronts you. It slows you down. It forces you to acknowledge what is happening within you. Pain can even become a teacher. But something far more subtle and far more dangerous is comfort without transformation. It is living a life that feels good on the surface, but leaves your soul unchanged. A life where everything appears fine externally, yet internally, nothing is being refined. A life filled with activity, noise, and temporary satisfaction, but lacking depth, conviction, and spiritual growth. Because it is possible to feel fine and still be spiritually stagnant. It is possible to smile and still be disconnected. It is possible to enjoy life outwardly and still remain unchanged inwardly. And this is where the deception becomes quiet, but powerful. Because when life feels comfortable, you rarely question whether you are growing. When emotions feel stable, you assume everything is aligned. When distractions are available, you assume everything is fine. But spiritual growth does not measure stability by comfort. It measures it by transformation. And this is why the daily decisions matter so deeply. Because every small choice either strengthens your alignment or slowly weakens your sensitivity to truth. Every moment you choose distraction over discipline does not just fill time, it reshapes direction. Every time you choose comfort over calling does not just avoid discomfort, it delays becoming who you are meant to be. And over time, without realizing it, you can build a life that looks full, but feels spiritually empty. A life that is active, but not aligned, busy, but not becoming. Because in the end, God is not just concerned with your happiness. He is concerned with who you are becoming, not just how you feel in the moment, not just how comfortable your life appears, not just how successful or stable things look on the outside, but the direction of your inner life, the shaping of your character, the depth of your spirit, the alignment of your heart. Because happiness can exist without transformation, but true spiritual life cannot. And what God is building in you is not just a better version of your emotions, but a deeper version of your being. So the real question is not, am I happy right now? But instead, am I becoming who I am meant to be? Because in the end, a life that feels good but remains unchanged is a life that has missed its deeper purpose, but a life that is being transformed, even through discomfort, is a life that is being shaped into something eternal.